Tools of Titans by Timothy Ferriss is different from most self-improvement books because it is not built around one single theory. Instead, it is a collection of lessons, habits, routines, mental models, and strategies gathered from hundreds of high performers interviewed on Ferriss's podcast. These people come from very different worlds: investors, athletes, writers, entrepreneurs, comedians, actors, military leaders, doctors, and creatives. Yet Ferriss believes that when you study enough exceptional people, patterns begin to appear. That is the core idea behind this book. Success may look different on the surface, but many high performers rely on similar tools. They think carefully about their time. They protect their energy. They build systems instead of relying only on willpower. They recover seriously. They ask better questions. They learn how to deal with fear, uncertainty, distraction, and pressure. This makes the book powerful because it feels less like theory and more like a toolbox. Ferriss is not saying there is one perfect method for every person. He is saying that if you expose yourself to the best routines and ideas from world-class performers, you can test them and adopt what works for your own life. That approach gives the book a unique energy. It is practical, curious, and experimental. Ferriss does not present self-improvement as a moral struggle where you simply try harder. He treats it more like design. What habits improve performance? What routines improve focus? What questions lead to better decisions? What systems reduce unnecessary friction? Another reason this book stands out is that it combines ambition with realism. The people in it are impressive, but they are not presented as perfect. Many of them struggle with anxiety, fear, inconsistency, failure, self-doubt, and burnout. That makes the lessons more believable. Ferriss wants the reader to see that high achievement is not built by flawless people. It is built by people who learn how to manage themselves more intelligently. In many ways, Tools of Titans is a book about borrowing wisdom. Instead of spending years discovering every lesson the hard way, you get to study what worked for others. You see how champions prepare, how creators think, how investors make decisions, and how performers recover from stress. That is why this book matters. It offers the reader access to patterns of excellence. And once you start noticing those patterns, you begin to realize that better performance is often less about talent and more about better tools. The title Tools of Titan sounds dramatic, but Ferriss uses the word Titan in a practical way. He is talking about people who perform at an unusually high level in their field. These are people who consistently produce strong results, influence others, and develop a level of mastery that stands out. They are not all famous in the same way, and they are not all working in the same industry. What connects them is that they have figured out methods that help them operate effectively under pressure. Ferriss's bigger goal is not just to admire them. It is to decode them. He wants to know what these people actually do. How do they start their mornings? How do they make difficult decisions? How do they learn? How do they train? How do they recover? How do they handle fear? How do they structure their lives so that success becomes more repeatable? This is an important shift because many people study success too vaguely. They admire outcomes, but they do not study process. They notice fame, wealth, or influence, but they do not look closely at the routines, questions, habits, and standards behind those outcomes. Ferriss is interested in the machinery underneath visible achievement. He also believes that patterns matter more than isolated tricks. A single tip can be useful, but what becomes really valuable is when multiple high performers independently arrive at similar conclusions. For example, many of them prioritize sleep or recovery. Many meditate or reflect. Many journal. Many train physically. Many protect mornings. Many avoid unnecessary commitments. Many focus on a few high-value actions instead of trying to do everything. These repeated patterns give the book its real strength. It is not just a random collection of life hacks. It is an attempt to identify recurring behaviors that seem to support excellence across very different domains. This idea is useful for the reader because it reduces the feeling that success is mysterious. It suggests that while every path is different, some tools are surprisingly universal. Better questions, disciplined routines, strategic recovery, strong boundaries, and clear priorities appear again and again. Ferriss is also realistic enough to know that not every tool will fit every person. The point is not blind imitation. The point is testing. You study the patterns, experiment intelligently, and keep what works. That makes the book feel alive. It invites readers to become researchers of their own lives. Instead of looking for one perfect answer, they learn to build a set of tools that improve performance over time. Ferriss organizes much of Tools of Titans around three broad areas: healthy, wealthy, and wise. This structure matters because it reflects his view that a good life is not built only through external achievement. Performance, money, and success are important, but they are not enough by themselves. Health matters. Mental clarity matters. Emotional stability matters. Wisdom matters. The healthy section focuses on energy, sleep, training, nutrition, recovery, and physical resilience. Ferriss repeatedly shows that elite performers treat their body as a foundation rather than an afterthought. They understand that poor sleep, weak recovery, and unstable energy eventually damage every other part of life. The wealthy section is not just about money in the narrow sense. It is also about leverage, decision-making, focus, investing, business strategy, and choosing high-value work. Ferriss is interested in how successful people create outsized results, not simply how they stay busy. The wise section might be the most interesting of all. It explores mindset, meditation, journaling, fear, meaning, philosophy, emotional control, and how to make life more intentional. This part gives the book depth because it shows that many top performers rely on inner practices just as much as outer tactics. This structure is useful because it reminds readers that improvement should be multidimensional. A person may become wealthy but unhealthy. They may become productive but restless. They may become successful but mentally unstable. Ferriss seems to be searching for a more complete model of performance, one that includes body, work, and mind. This is also why the book appeals to so many people. Different readers enter through different doors. Some come for business ideas. Some come for morning routines. Some come for meditation or mindset. Some come for practical tools to improve their daily life. The healthy, wealthy, and wise framework allows the book to serve all of them. But the deeper message is integration. Ferriss is showing that many great performers do not treat these areas as separate. Better health improves better thinking. Better thinking improves decision-making. Better decision-making improves work. Better work creates more time and freedom to invest back into health and wisdom. When these areas support one another, life becomes more powerful and more sustainable. That is what gives the structure of the book real value. It is not only a convenient way to organize content. It reflects a serious idea. Peak performance is strongest when body, money, and mind are all being developed intelligently. One of the biggest patterns Ferriss discovers in Tools of Titans is the importance of morning routines. Again and again, high performers describe the first part of the day as unusually important. Not because mornings are magical in themselves, but because they set the tone for attention, mood, and decision-making. Many successful people do not wake up and immediately enter reaction mode. They do not start by checking every message, scrolling through updates, or letting external noise set the emotional direction of the day. Instead, they begin with rituals that create stability. This may include meditation, journaling, movement, stretching, tea or coffee without distraction, gratitude practice, or a few minutes of focused planning. The exact routine varies from person to person, but the pattern is clear. They protect the beginning of the day. They use it to ground themselves before the demands of the world rush in. Ferriss is especially interested in routines because routines reduce friction. If the first hour of the day is left to chance, it can easily be consumed by distraction or low-value activity. But when the morning is designed deliberately, better choices become easier. The mind becomes less scattered. Priorities become clearer. This idea is practical because it shows that self-discipline does not always begin with heroic effort. Often it begins with environment and sequence. If you know what you do first, second, and third each morning, you are less likely to drift into chaos. Ferriss also notices that many high performers keep their routines fairly simple. This is important. A morning routine does not need to be complicated to be effective. In fact, if it becomes too elaborate, it can collapse under real-life pressure. The strongest routines are often repeatable, low friction, and built around a few actions that create calm, focus, and momentum. This section of the book is useful because mornings affect far more than mornings. They influence the quality of thought, emotional steadiness, and the ability to protect meaningful work. A strong start does not guarantee a perfect day, but it increases the odds of acting intentionally rather than reactively. Ferriss's broader message is that many successful people do not leave their state of mind to chance. They train it early. And that is one of the first tools the reader can borrow. Start the day in a way that serves your priorities instead of surrendering it immediately to distraction. Another major pattern in Tools of Titans is that many high performers use some kind of reflective practice. Meditation, journaling, breathing exercises, and quiet thinking appear again and again across very different guests. This is one of the most important lessons in the book because it challenges the assumption that success is built only through constant output. Ferriss shows that many exceptional people deliberately create time to slow the mind down. They understand that if attention is always scattered, emotions are always reactive, and thoughts are never examined, then performance eventually suffers. Mental clarity does not appear automatically. It has to be cultivated. Meditation is especially common in the book. Ferriss is not interested in it as something mystical or purely spiritual. He often treats it as mental training. It improves awareness. It helps people notice stress sooner. It reduces emotional reactivity. It strengthens the ability to return attention to what matters. Journaling appears for similar reasons. Writing thoughts down helps clarify them. It can expose fears, highlight patterns, improve decision-making, and create perspective. Some people journal for gratitude. Others use it to think through problems. Others write to unload mental noise before it becomes overwhelming. The specific style varies, but the purpose is often the same: create space between thought and reaction. This matters because many people live almost entirely in mental traffic. Thoughts rush by all day, but few are examined carefully. Ferriss's guests often seem different because they build moments of reflection into their lives. They do not only act, they observe. That ability to observe is powerful. It helps with stress, focus, creativity, and emotional regulation. It can also improve relationships and decision-making because people become less controlled by immediate impulse. Ferriss seems deeply aware that achievement without inner clarity can become unstable. A person may look successful while feeling mentally exhausted, scattered, or trapped by their own mind. Reflective practices help counter that instability. The lesson here is not that everyone must meditate for an hour or keep a perfect journal. The lesson is that high performance often includes some form of stillness. Some space to think, breathe, notice, and reset. In a noisy world, this becomes a major advantage. The person who can step back from constant reaction sees more clearly. And the clearer the mind becomes, the better every other tool in life tends to work. A strong theme throughout Tools of Titans is that elite performers do not necessarily have less fear than everyone else. What often makes them different is their relationship to fear. They learn to examine it, use it, and move through it instead of being ruled by it. Ferriss has long been interested in this topic because fear blocks action in subtle ways. People delay important conversations. They postpone creative work. They avoid risk. They stay in jobs or routines they dislike. They shrink their ambitions to protect themselves from failure, embarrassment, or uncertainty. High performers are not immune to these emotions, but many of them have developed habits for dealing with them more intelligently. One of Ferriss's recurring lessons is that the things we most avoid often contain the next level of growth. Difficult calls, uncomfortable decisions, honest self-examination, public failure, all of these can become turning points if faced directly. This is why the book contains so many stories of pain, struggle, and reversal. Ferriss wants the reader to see that confidence often comes after action, not before it. Many successful people built courage by repeatedly doing things that felt uncomfortable until discomfort lost some of its control. He is also interested in practical methods for reducing fear. This might include writing down worst-case scenarios, asking what is actually reversible, breaking large risks into smaller experiments, or exposing yourself gradually to what you avoid. These methods work because they turn vague emotional fear into something more concrete and manageable. This theme gives the book emotional force. It reminds readers that high performance is not only a matter of optimization. It is also a matter of emotional bravery. The ability to enter discomfort often separates people who keep dreaming from people who begin moving. Ferriss's broader point is that the comfort zone is expensive. It protects you from embarrassment, but it may also protect you from growth, freedom, and meaningful progress. Many guests in the book seem to have learned this personally. Their lives improved when they became more willing to face what they had been avoiding. That makes this section of the book highly practical. If you want to improve your life, do not only ask what habits to add. Ask what discomfort you keep avoiding. Ask what fear has too much influence over your choices. Because one of the clearest lessons in Tools of Titans is that often the next breakthrough is waiting on the other side of a conversation, action, or decision you have been postponing. Ferriss repeatedly shows that many high performers take health far more seriously than the average person. This includes sleep, recovery, movement, diet, and overall physical maintenance. While the specific methods vary, the deeper principle is consistent. The body is not separate from performance. It is the platform performance happens on. This matters because many people treat health like a side project. They focus on work, goals, and achievement while assuming energy will somehow remain available. But Ferriss's guests often reveal the opposite lesson. When sleep gets poor, focus drops. When stress remains unmanaged, judgment weakens. When recovery is ignored, both mood and creativity suffer. Over time, poor physical maintenance damages nearly everything else. Ferriss is not preaching one perfect routine for every person. Instead, he is collecting patterns. Some people emphasize strength training. Others walk daily. Others focus heavily on sleep hygiene. Others use fasting, cold exposure, or specific nutrition habits. What matters most is that they do not leave energy to chance. This is a powerful shift because it reframes health from vanity to utility. Exercise is not only about appearance. Sleep is not only about rest. Nutrition is not only about rules. These things influence cognition, mood, consistency, and the ability to endure pressure. It is also striking how many top performers respect recovery. They understand that nonstop intensity is not sustainable. Performance is not just about output. It is also about the ability to restore and return strong. This lesson is especially valuable in cultures that glorify exhaustion. Ferriss's interest in health is practical rather than moralistic. He wants to know what improves function, what helps people think better, recover faster, and stay steady under challenge. That makes the advice feel useful instead of preachy. The deeper message is that ambition without physical care becomes fragile. A person may push hard for a while, but if the base is weak, results become inconsistent or collapse entirely. Many of Ferriss's guests seem to understand this deeply. They build health into their system because they know it supports everything else. That is one of the clearest lessons from the healthy section of the book. If you want better work, better focus, and better emotional resilience, do not ignore the body. The stronger and more stable the foundation, the more powerful the rest of life becomes. When Ferriss explores the wealthy side of Tools of Titans, he is not just interested in making money. He is interested in how top performers think about leverage, value, decisions, and the use of time. A major pattern appears here as well. Wealthy and effective people are often highly selective. They do not try to do everything. They identify what matters most and organize their energy around it. This often means concentrating on a small number of high-value actions instead of drowning in low-value tasks. It also means understanding leverage. Some activities create outsized results. A good decision, a strong hire, an important relationship, a valuable idea, or a well-timed investment can matter far more than dozens of smaller tasks. Ferriss is fascinated by this because it challenges the normal equation of effort with outcome. Many people assume that more work always means more reward. But high performers often show that precision matters more than volume. The question is not only how hard you work. It is where your effort lands. This is also where business and investing lessons in the book become useful. Ferriss's guests often emphasize patience, clarity, and focus. They avoid noise. They think long-term. They understand opportunity cost. They are careful about where they place attention, capital, and trust. Another recurring idea is that saying no is economically important. Every commitment has a cost. Every weak opportunity consumes time that could have gone into something stronger. This is why boundaries and selectivity appear so often among successful people. They are not only personality traits. They are part of effective resource management. This section of the book helps the reader see money differently. Wealth is not only about earnings. It is about how intelligently you position effort, how well you avoid waste, and how effectively you use leverage. Ferriss often seems more impressed by people who create freedom and impact efficiently than by people who simply stay busy at a high level. That idea matters beyond money. It applies to creative work, leadership, entrepreneurship, and even personal life. The highest returns often come from better choices, not just more motion. The lesson here is simple but powerful. If you want better results, stop treating every action as equal. Some choices shape the future much more than others. Learn to identify them, protect them, and give them the attention they deserve. That is one of the real Tools of Titans. The Wise section of Tools of Titans gives the book much of its depth. Here Ferriss moves beyond performance metrics and into questions of meaning, peace, perspective, and emotional stability. This matters because many people can become productive or successful while still feeling deeply unsettled inside. Ferriss seems to understand that outer success without inner balance can be unstable and unsatisfying. Across many interviews, one pattern becomes clear. People who perform at a high level for a long time often develop philosophies that help them stay grounded. These may come from meditation, stoicism, Buddhism, faith, journaling, therapy, gratitude, or simply long experience with failure and recovery. The forms vary, but the function is often the same. They create perspective. Perspective matters because it reduces overreaction. A person with perspective is less likely to be destroyed by criticism, inflated by praise, or trapped by short-term emotional swings. They can see events in context. They can pause before reacting. They can endure discomfort without immediately interpreting it as disaster. Ferriss is also drawn to questions that cut through surface noise. What really matters? What kind of life is worth building? What does enough look like? How do you keep ambition from becoming self-destructive? These questions prevent the book from becoming just another collection of performance tips. This section suggests that wisdom is not separate from effectiveness. In fact, wisdom may be one of the things that makes sustainable effectiveness possible. Without it, people often become trapped in comparison, ego, overwork, and constant dissatisfaction. The The book also quietly reminds the reader that many impressive people still wrestle with loneliness, meaning, mental health, and uncertainty. That honesty gives the book emotional credibility. It shows that high performance does not erase human struggle. What changes is often the quality of the tools people use to handle that struggle. Ferriss's deeper point seems to be that a good life requires both achievement and self-understanding. You need systems, but you also need perspective. You need action, but you also need reflection. You need ambition, but you also need wisdom strong enough to keep ambition in its proper place. That is why the whys section matters so much. It reminds readers that the ultimate goal is not simply to do more. It is to live better, think better, and become steadier in the face of life. One of the best mindsets Ferriss encourages in Tools of Titans is experimentation. He does not present the book as a fixed doctrine. He does not say there is one right routine, one right diet, one right meditation method, or one right productivity system. Instead, he constantly pushes the reader toward testing. This is one of the most useful things about Ferriss's approach. It removes the pressure to become someone else. You do not need to copy a Titan exactly. You need to experiment with the tools they use and observe what happens in your own life. What improves your focus? What helps your sleep? What morning routine makes you calmer and more productive? What questions improve your decision-making? What habits consistently increase energy? This mindset is powerful because it transforms self-improvement from guilt into curiosity. Instead of blaming yourself for not following some perfect routine, you start asking better questions. What variable can I change? What happens if I try this for 2 weeks? What result do I notice? That approach makes progress more practical and less emotional. It also fits reality better. People differ in temperament, schedule, biology, life stage, and goals. What works brilliantly for one person may not suit another. Ferriss seems to accept this and even value it. The point is not identical outcomes. The point is intelligent adaptation. Experimentation also encourages ownership. When people discover through direct experience that something works for them, the habit tends to become more stable. It is no longer just borrowed advice. It becomes tested knowledge. This lesson matters because self-improvement often collapses under perfectionism. People try to adopt too much, expect immediate transformation, and then quit when real life becomes messy. Ferriss's better message is to treat improvement like a lab. Small tests, honest feedback. Keep what works. Drop what does not. That approach creates momentum. It also protects the reader from becoming overly attached to trends, gurus, or identity-based habits. You stay practical. You stay observant. You stay focused on outcomes. In the end, Tools of Titans works best when read this way. Not as a command, but as a field guide. Not as one answer, but as a collection of experiments worth testing. That mindset alone may be one of the most valuable tools in the entire book. One reason Tools of Titans has stayed relevant is that it is highly usable. It does not require the reader to agree with every guest or adopt some massive new philosophy all at once. Instead, it offers many entry points. A person can take one idea, one routine, one question, or one system and begin there. This matters because many self-improvement books fail in practice. They may sound inspiring, but they are too rigid, too abstract, or too dependent on the author's personality. Ferriss avoids some of that by collecting tools instead of imposing a single worldview. That makes the book more flexible. It is also useful because it normalizes customization. You can build your own toolkit. Maybe the biggest lesson for one reader is meditation. For another, it is journaling. For another, it is strength training. For another, it is asking better business questions. For another, it is learning to say no more often. The book works because it gives people permission to start where the leverage is highest for them. At the same time, the book can feel overwhelming if approached the wrong way. There are many ideas, many personalities, and many routines. A reader who tries to absorb everything at once may end up inspired but scattered. The wiser approach is selective use. Choose a few tools. Test them seriously. Let experience decide. That is where the real value appears. Ferriss does not need to be followed perfectly for the book to change a life. A single new routine can change mornings. A single question can change a business decision. A single fear exercise can change a career move. A single journaling habit can reduce mental noise dramatically. This is what makes the book practical for real life. It is modular. It can meet the reader where they are. A beginner can use it. A high performer can use it. A stress professional can use it. An entrepreneur can use it. A creator can use it. The larger lesson is that improvement does not always come from huge reinvention. Sometimes it comes from one powerful tool applied consistently. Ferriss seems to understand that better than many authors. That is why Tools of Titans remains so useful. It does not just inspire ambition. It provides equipment. And when the right tool meets the right moment in a person's life, progress can happen surprisingly fast. At its heart, Tools of Titans is a book about borrowing the best practices of exceptional people and using them to build a better life. Timothy Ferriss's core message is that high performance is not usually the result of random talent alone. It is often supported by routines, systems, questions, habits, and mental models that can be studied and adapted. The book shows that many world-class performers share important patterns. They protect mornings. They take care of their body. They reflect regularly. They think carefully about fear. They use systems instead of relying only on willpower. They focus on high-value actions. They guard their attention. They recover seriously. And perhaps most importantly, they experiment constantly. Several major lessons stand out. First, build your own toolkit instead of searching for one perfect method. Second, health matters because energy supports everything else. Third, mental clarity matters because a scattered mind weakens performance. Fourth, discomfort often marks the edge of growth. Fifth, wisdom and inner stability are essential if success is going to remain sustainable. And sixth, experimentation beats dogma because the best system is the one that works in your real life. What makes this book special is that it combines ambition with practicality. It encourages better performance, but it also acknowledges human struggle. It shows greatness, but it also shows vulnerability. It offers strategies, but it leaves room for adaptation. That combination makes it powerful. If you take one big idea from Tools of Titans, let it be this: you do not need to invent every lesson from scratch. Study what works for people operating at a high level. Test their tools. Keep what improves your life. Build your own system from proven parts. That approach is deeply empowering because it turns success into something more learnable. You do not need to become a titan overnight. You need to start acting with better tools, better awareness, and better consistency. And that is the lasting value of this book. It gives readers access not just to inspiration, but to practical methods for thinking better, living better, and performing at a higher level over time.